Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and I have some updated information for y'all. We're going to do a dive into the fact that the Washington Commanders have now made their final coaching staff hire with assistant special teams coach John Glenn. I thought they were been done. They did a whole announcement with a graphic and things like that. So we're going to talk about that hire. We're going to talk about where he came from. Is he a good hire or not? All of that type of stuff. And also, I want to do a dive. You know, it's Rico of Street Scores. We can't just stop there. We're also going to dive into where some ex-Washington Commanders coaches from the previous 2023 season have ended up. Because some have ended up in pretty interesting places. A couple of guys have ended up at the same place. A couple of people from the same positional group have split ways and gone elsewhere. It's actually pretty interesting. And man, I'm super excited because I have some really interesting video topics. I was itching to go ahead and do those first, but I feel like it makes the most sense for us to go ahead and knock this out because this is something that happened yesterday, as in Tuesday, February 20th. So we're gonna go ahead and get this out the way, but trust me, man, we got some really fun content coming up very soon. But before we dive into everything in this video, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. Again, I'm literally itching to get y'all these other videos, but I was like, nah, let's go ahead and focus on what's most important now, and then we're gonna do the fun stuff later on today because it's 4:14 a.m. right now, Wednesday, February 21st. So stay tuned because sometime early evening I'm gonna come up with one of those videos, and then if no like random breaking news things happen with the Commanders, y'all are gonna get the next two after that as well. Some really important updates, some really fun information. We're gonna dive into all of those things, but again, let's focus on this video, one video at a time. Let's go ahead and get to it, man. Let's get it. All right, so the Washington Commanders literally tweeted out and said, we finalized our 2024 coaching staff with the hire of John Glenn as assistant special teams coach. And I was wondering if we were going to hire a special teams assistant or not, because it makes sense. I thought teams usually do carry a special teams coach, who we already have in Larry Izzo, who came from the Seattle Seahawks, had a top 6 special teams unit for each of the past 4 or 5 years or something like that. Something crazy. So a huge upgrade going from Nate Caxton to that guy. But then we're also bringing in John Glenn to be his assistant. And again, I just assume that usually you have assistant special teams coaches on your staff, but the Commanders made it seem like last week we were done. Like they did the official graphic of all of the coaches that we hired. They did all of the official announcements, official titles and things like that. And they acted like we were done. So when I saw this hire, I'm surprised in one way because I thought that they said that we were done last week, but at the same time I'm not really surprised because having an assistant head coach makes a lot of sense. But at this point, I don't know what the Commanders got going on. I mean, watch out, they may end up hiring somebody else random. We might end up hiring a centers coach or something out of nowhere. Who knows? At this point, I don't trust them when I say we're done making hires, but at the end of the day, I'm happy that they're not. Bring on as many people that can help as possible. I love all of it, man. Josh Harris is not being stingy. He's not being skimpy. Scared money don't make money. That boy Josh Harris is willing to spend big millions to do whatever it takes to help this franchise get better, even if it's by a small marginal difference. Of course, John Glenn isn't coming here to make like a huge impact, but any small marginal difference, especially in the positive direction that he has potentially has an impact on this team, could be huge in the long run, and I'll take every little bit of it. Even if he only helps the Commanders' potential of winning games by like 0.05%, I'll take that 0.05% no matter what he's asking for. And again, plain and simple, I thought having a special teams coach made sense. I was surprised when last week they did the whole, this is our final coaching staff, here you go. I was like, when you had offense, you had so many people. You had defense, you had so many people. Then you get the special teams, it was just only one guy. And I was looking at that like, I don't know, man. I feel like you should probably at least get an assistant or something. So this makes sense. And then let's go ahead and dive into the hire. I'm going in directly from the commanders.com website. It says the Washington Commanders announced today, well, as in yesterday, Tuesday, February 20th, that John Glenn has been hired as an assistant special teams coach. With this hire, the Commanders have finalized the 2024 staff. I bet y'all have finalized it. Yeah, sure. I'll believe it when I see it. Glenn joins the Commanders after most recently serving as the linebackers coach for the Seattle Seahawks from 2018 to 2023. Very interesting. So this is another ex-Seattle Seahawk guy. With Dan Quinn being our head coach, we've pulled in guys from the Seahawks. We've pulled in guys from the Falcons, technically with Joe Witt Jr., even though he followed them from the Cowboys. And of course, we have a couple of Dallas Cowboy guys. But it's not just a complete overrun of like previous teams that Dan Quinn is coached for that makes up this whole staff. It's not the Washington Commanders like we were under Ron Rivera. It's bits and pieces of different places, different connections. I love how well balanced it is. The fact that we only retain like 3 positional coaches lets you know from that previous 2023 regime, lets you know everything you need to know about why we were not winning games last year. That should tell you everything you need to know. But it's really interesting also that this is a linebackers coach. This is not like a previous special teams coach or anything. He was the Seattle Seahawks linebackers coach from 2018 to 2013. And even though he's coming here to be an assistant head coach, does that increase the chances of us re-signing Cody Barton or maybe going to go get Seattle Seahawks free agents to maybe potentially bring in as a linebacker or anywhere on the defense, especially with Dan Quinn's ties there, Ken Norton Jr., a whole lot of people in this coaching staff? Well, not a lot, but like 5 guys have ties back to days coaching for the Seattle Seahawks at different points in time. So you never know. That's a whole nother video in itself. But going back to John Glenn, he's entering his 13th year as an NFL coach after 12 consecutive seasons with the Seattle Seahawks organization. Before his 12-year stint with Seattle, Glenn spent 2 seasons on the University of Washington's coaching staff as a quality control coach, 2010-2011, and 3 seasons as a linebackers coach for North Carolina Wesleyan College. I have no idea. From 2006 to 2008. I'm not even going to sit here and lie to y'all. I have no idea what that is. I hope I pronounced it right, but y'all got to remember this is the same guy that was pronouncing Potomac as Potomac. That's what it looked like on paper. I'm sorry, I never heard somebody say it out loud until y'all got on me about it. What was that, like a couple of years ago? I remember that. So I'm hoping I got that name right. I don't know. In 2023, the Seattle linebacker core proved to be a foundation of the defensive unit, with linebacker Bobby Wagner leading the NFL in tackles, 183. At that age, too, is amazing. I mean, I want to give John Glenn some credit, but I feel like if anything, Bobby Wagner is just a future Hall of Famer for a reason. So, hey, man, I want to hype up, John Glenn helped Bobby Wagner lead the NFL in tackles in his 30s. But I'm not even going to sit here and do that. Bobby Wagner is Bobby Wagner. But he had 100 tackles for his 12th consecutive season, which goes back to my point that Bobby Wagner is Bobby Wagner. Wagner became the 3rd player in NFL history to accomplish that milestone. Last season, Glenn helped linebacker Jordan Brooks transition from a will linebacker to a Mike linebacker, and Brooks led the NFC and was 5th in the NFL with 161 tackles. It is also the 4th most for a single season in Seattle history. Now we can start to reach in our bag and give John Glenn some of that credit. And with that move alone, you're thinking like, well, why didn't we bring this guy in as a linebackers coach? If he can get that out of Jordan Brooks to be the one to say, hey, change from Will to Mike, trust me, you can be a really good Mike linebacker, and then for it to work out that well that soon, John Glenn deserves a lot of credit for that. The Bobby Wagner thing, but the Jordan Brooks thing, got to give him a lot of credit for that. But to answer your question, why he wasn't brought in as a linebackers coach is because Ken Norton Jr. is already our linebackers coach. We got that covered. I'm very optimistic and high on Ken Norton Jr.'s impact that he's going to have on the linebackers. And just to be able to bring in a guy like John Glenn as a special teams assistant coach is very interesting. To take basically, essentially going from the linebackers coach getting basically demoted back into an assistant special teams coach is very interesting. It's clear that he just really wanted to be a part of this staff. Shouts out to him. In 2021, Glenn led a linebacker room that saw Brooks have a breakout season in his 2nd year, ranking 2nd in the NFL with a franchise record 183 tackles. Wagner finished with 170, 2nd most in franchise history, while being selected to his 8th consecutive Pro Bowl. Wagner was named 2nd team All-Pro by the Associated Press, the only player in franchise history with 8 All-Pro nominations. In 2020, Wagner was voted to the Pro Bowl for the 7th time and selected to the Associated All-Pro first team. It was Wagner's 5th consecutive first team All-Pro consecutive season and 6th time in his career earning the honor. The previous year, Wagner recorded the 2nd most tackles in franchise history with 159, and KJ Wright posted a career high 132. So ever since John Glenn has been their linebacker group, it's not their linebackers coach, it's not just Bobby Wagner. Yes, he's a Hall of Famer, but when you check his resume, he's been doing pretty well with the linebackers. The thing is, again, he's coming here to be the assistant special teams coach. So all of that linebacker development experience sounds great, but how can he help us on special teams? So this goes to the part of the article I skipped a little bit, going to where they talk about Glenn would serve a variety of roles upon joining the Seattle staff in 2012. Beginning as a coaching and special teams assistant, he would achieve a victory in Super Bowl 48. He was then promoted to the role of defensive quality control coach the following season and became defensive assistant before assuming the role of linebackers assistant in 2017. Glenn entered the league after spending 2 seasons, 2010 to 2011, as the University of Washington's quality control coach and 3 seasons as a linebackers coach for that same college in North Carolina that I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it right. And then eventually he moved up to linebackers coach, and the rest is history. So, I mean, at the very least, having another great linebacker mind and developer on the staff, even if he's going to more so focus on special teams, is huge. But why I feel like a linebacker coach can transition from linebacker to special teams, because a lot of the players that are on special teams tend to be linebackers. You have some offensive linemen out there, you may have some edge rushers, of course you'll have some DBs and some wide receivers, but you have a lot of linebackers out there, especially like a lot of depth linebackers. A lot of those guys that are doing whatever it takes just to make the roster. They're willing to do whatever it takes on special teams, even if they don't play at all on the defensive side of the ball in games. And again, a lot of those guys are linebackers, so it kind of makes sense. And I'll take as bad as unperforming as our linebackers have been, and also just even on top of the lack of development, the lack of scouting to find the right linebackers in the draft or free agency, or at the very least not being willing to do whatever it takes to get those guys. I just feel like bringing in Ken Norton Jr. as our linebackers coach, and even bringing in John Glenn as an assistant special teams coach, as much linebacker development and genius and expertise we have in this coaching staff, even if he's not directly coordinating and helping and coaching the linebackers, I'll take it. I'll take this as a plus hire no matter what. Of course, this is a guy that, again, he hasn't been a special teams coordinator at the NFL level at the very least, so it's kind of an unknown as far as how much he can help there. But again, a lot of linebackers play special teams. He's an ex-linebackers coach that got greatness, especially out of a Jordan Brooks. So I'm really interested in seeing what he could do for us. Again, I'm just going to give this coaching staff the benefit of the doubt in general with a lot of these hires, especially the ones where it's, relatively questionable, like a Bobby Johnson on the offensive line, or a Tom Donatel in the DBs group, or if it's just like relatively unknown, like half of the hires we made is kind of like we don't really have a good enough, long enough, extensive enough track record in history to really judge whether this was a great hire or not. They're kind of like non-applicable when you're going down and grading a lot of the hires. This is one of those, but at the end of the day, I'm giving this coaching staff the benefit of the doubt on all of this. I'm super excited. I'm very optimistic that they're making the right choices and that we're going to build something great from the ground up. I'm really excited. But at the same time, even John Glenn isolated away from this coaching staff from the influence of Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, Josh Harris, and all of these guys that have me very optimistic about the Washington Commanders' future and franchise, basically. John Glenn also just himself is a proven linebackers coach, and again, you add that to the group. I don't care what his job is. He could be the QB's coach. I'm just happy to have him here with as bad as our linebackers have been, with all of the talent we've had. Jamin Davis's athleticism, we haven't been getting the most out of that. And we had 2 previous linebackers as our head coach and defensive coordinator. That's a shame. Now moving on to the second half of the video, where have some previous Commanders coaches landed so far? Because I think pretty much all of them were fired. Like of course, Ron Rivera was fired. Jack Del Rio was fired before the season even ended. Eric Bieniemy was technically fired. They moved on from him. I don't believe any of our coaches that ended up getting jobs elsewhere just left us. I feel like all of them, they came in with people in mind that they preferred. They had higher priority people in line. And then once they made the hire, the guy that was doing that last year was like, all right, I guess I'm gone type of thing. And I'm pretty sure Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, and all those guys gave those people heads up early on. But I'm just saying all that to say that I don't think any of our coaches from 2023 season that are no longer with us left us for a better opportunity before they were. I think everybody was basically fired is what I'm saying. But again, when you're as bad as you were last year, even though it may not be these guys' faults individually, I'm glad that Dan Quinn, Adam Peters are bringing in guys from previous organizations that they've worked with, coached for, and all of that type of stuff that they trust that can do those jobs. Maybe some of those coaches from the previous Burgundy and Gold staff from 2023 are really good at what they do, but it's just kind of hard to tell. It's kind of hard to isolate those things. That's why retaining Bobby Ingram as the wide receivers coach and Tavita Pritchard as the quarterbacks coach is pretty monumental, because the Commanders would seem like they were doing everything that they could to bring in the guy they trusted the most, the guy with the most notoriety. Let's get him from there. Let's get him from there to do this. So for those guys to stay, I think that's more of a compliment to those two guys. So continuing on with guys that have now ended up getting jobs elsewhere. Ken Zampese, the Commanders senior offensive advisor and game management coach, and he was like the quarterbacks coach a couple of years ago. Yeah, from 2020 to 2022. He was hired as a senior offensive assistant for the Falcons. So really interesting. So we took Sarah from Raheem Morris, and then he took Ken Zampese for us. So I think it was actually the other way around. Like, he took Ken Zampese from us first, even though, again, they already had other people in mind for those things, and I feel like Ken Zampese was just kind of the odd man out. Raheem Morris picked them up, and then the Commanders said, all right, bet, we're going to go ahead and take Sarah from you. And then also on top of that, another coach that is gone, you have Sankel, the Commanders nutritionist and assistant strength and conditioning coach. The last 8 seasons, he's gone to work with the Florida Gators, and I'm sick of all this Florida Gator stuff. We're hiring Florida Gators to be our coaches. Dan Quinn used to coach for the Florida Gators. Then we have guys leaving us to go to the Florida Gators. Like, golly, man, chill out, man. Also, after the Commanders decided to not retain Jeff Ganina, the Cowboys ended up hiring him to be their defensive lines coach. He made a lateral move, but again, technically, the Commanders fired him. And then the Cowboys were like, hey, man, we'll take him. And Jeff Ganina is a good coach. I'm not even going to sit here and downplay him now that he's the Cowboys defensive lines coach. But I'm very excited about the guy that we hired for defensive lines. I'm excited about his potential ceiling there. And so, shouts out to my boy Resh Manuel for bringing this up and pointing this out. So you have, between the 49ers and the Cowboys, we basically traded Chase Young away for Adam Peters, Daryl Tapp, and Anthony Lynn. And then on the Cowboys side, we basically gave them Jeff Ganina for Dan Quinn, Floyd, Onegian, and Joe Witt Jr. I mean, hey, man, if that was like an official trade situation, we killed it. I'm very happy with those results. Also, former Washington Commanders assistant quarterbacks coach Luke Del Rio, of course, attachments to Jack Del Rio, is expected to join the Washington Huskies staff as an offensive analyst. The former UF quarterback spent the past 4 years coaching in the NFL. So if for any reason you were wondering where Luke Del Rio went, that's where he went. And then Jennifer King, oddly enough, went to the Bears as an offensive assistant. She's going to work with the running backs. She was the assistant running backs coach to Randy Jordan for the past couple of years here, and I really liked her. I'm sad to see her go, but the Commanders decided they prefer to have Anthony Lynn as the run game coordinator and the running backs coach, and I don't even believe we have an assistant running backs coach. They're like, you handle that whole thing yourself. Anything running back, anything running the ball, anything with the word run in it, Anthony Lynn, you got it, basically. But yeah, it's really interesting because Jennifer King did not follow Randy Jordan to Tennessee. She went to go do her own thing for the Bears. I thought that was really interesting. Congratulations to her, man. I hope she does a fantastic job where she goes and just works her way up the ranks and ends up becoming like an elite offensive coordinator or something. I'm really rooting for her. I really like Jennifer King. I like Randy Jordan a lot too. I miss him as well. One of my coaches that I'm probably going to miss the most moving on to this next regime out of everybody that we ended up losing. But I'm also excited about Anthony Lynn, of course, too. So, you know, I don't feel like I'm going to necessarily miss Randy Jordan as if we're going to have a drop off in running back production. But I just really liked Randy Jordan's drills especially. And then I loved how Jennifer King was very helpful as well. But also remember, and I feel like I may have talked about this in another video, but Randy Jordan and Chris Harris remember he was our DB's coach from a couple of years ago, have now reunited on the Tennessee Titans. Chris Harris left like a couple of years ago to join the Titans. He's been there for a while. Now Randy Jordan just went to go reunite with him there. And again, I'm surprised with Randy Jordan being the running backs coach for the Commanders the past few years and Jennifer King being his assistant, that Randy Jordan went to the Titans, reunited with our old DB's coach Chris Harris, and Jennifer King didn't go with them. But again, shouts out to her for her new opportunity, because it sounds like she got a promotion, and I'm excited to see what she does with it. I'm gonna definitely keep track of that. I have my eyes on the Bears anyway. Really close friend of mine is a Bears fan. I mean, I'm gonna be interested in seeing how Caleb Williams works out for them. I like Shane Waldron as an offensive coordinator going from the Seattle Seahawks to the Bears. I'm very intrigued with what they have going on over there. Montez Sweat, even just beyond the fact that he's used to play for the Commanders, he's also from Atlanta. That's why I was super happy when we drafted him. So I'm gonna keep track of his progress, and I think they're just gonna be a really fun team to watch. So I'm gonna keep track of the Bears moving forward, especially years on down the line. And then also, before we get up out of here, I do want to point out the fact that Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio didn't end up landing anywhere. Now, I don't know if Jack Del Rio was even interested, because I didn't hear anything about him getting interviews. Whereas Ron Rivera was interviewing for like the Cowboys defensive coordinator job. I think he interviewed for the Giants one, or at the very least I heard that there was interest from the Giants and the Cowboys side to potentially hire him as one, but then both of those teams ended up hiring other people for their jobs. So hey man, I wish Ron Rivera the best of luck. Hope he lands somewhere. But to basically be thorough, it looks like, based on all of the hirings that are already done, I'm assuming that if he is able to get a job somewhere, especially as a defensive coordinator, it will probably be next year. I highly doubt I believe they already hired a defensive coordinator, but I also just highly doubt they go from Steve Wilkes, who for some reason is being blamed as a scapegoat for them losing the Super Bowl, which is just absolutely blasphemous to me. I already did like a whole 5-minute, 8-minute rant on that in another video like last week. But I doubt they go from Steve Wilkes to Ron Rivera. And I think they already did hire the defensive coordinator coach. So right now I'm just babbling about nothing. But by the way, shouts out to Ron Rivera. I'm rooting for him. I want him to go elsewhere and be great, but I am happy that we moved on from him. You can do both. You can be happy for Ron Rivera's future. You can also be happy that Ron Rivera is no longer a part of our future. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. And again, I have so many video ideas, I have all of the notes ready. I just literally need to record and edit them. I have all of the information I need, and I was about to go ahead and do them because I'm super excited to talk about those, but I felt like we need to do what's right. Me being a burgundy and gold reporter, I felt like I need to report the more important information for now. We can get to the fun stuff afterwards, so stay tuned for that. And of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video. How do you feel about this John Glenn hire? Do you feel like it's an underrated hire? Are you just as curious as I am to see how a linebackers coach from many years and a proven developer of a linebackers coach transition into an assistant special teams coach? I mean, that is pretty much a step back. I mean, unless his ultimate goal is to, instead of being a defensive coordinator, is to be a special teams coach and maybe parlay that into a head coaching position. Because again, like I've talked about in several videos and live streams, teams with head coach openings do like to look at special teams coordinators because a lot of them are considered the best motivators around the NFL. I mean, because think about it. You have to tell grown men making millions of dollars to just go out there and risk your health every play. Just put your body on the line. Just do car crashes over and over again. Just run into people. Or even just a punt returner. Like, you're telling them to be a sitting duck and get ready to get blasted unless you fear. All kinds of stuff, which makes me even respect my dog, Westlake, you know what I'm saying, Southwest Atlanta, Adam Pac-Man Jones. I keep hearing about this thing that he's never called a fair catch in his career. If that's true, that's ridiculous. That's absolutely insane. That's my dog over there though. But again, special teams coaches typically seen as like the best motivators in the NFL, because how do you do that? Everybody does not have a skill to tell grown men making millions of dollars to go out there and risk your health on a game-to-game, play-by-play basis. So it's really interesting to see where John Glenn is headed. Does he just literally want to go the special teams route? Does he see that as the quickest route to becoming a head coach? Or does he actually just legitimately just want to work his way up to being a special teams coach? And maybe Larry Izzo is just so elite at being a special teams coach for the Seattle Seahawks, he's going to come here and I'm assuming doing the same thing, taking us from the third worst special teams unit to a top 6 one. He's probably going to get head coaching calls within the next year or two. He may be on out the way, and then maybe John Glenn is right there to be a successor and go ahead and be our special teams coach, and then maybe he parlays that into a head coach coach's job. I don't know. Let me know how you feel about everything in this video. Of course, let me know if you agree with any of my points, what your thoughts on in this whole situation. Also, let me know how you feel about all of the Commanders coaches that have left to go get other jobs. Are you happy for them? All of that type of stuff. And are you surprised that Ron Rivera does not have a job right now until maybe next coaching cycle, which I'm pretty sure he'll end up somewhere next coaching cycle. At least I'm hoping for it. More so than like I actually think it will happen. I'm just rooting for him, man. He was a good guy and he went through a lot being our head coach. But yeah, man, that's in this video. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.